Good afternoon, America, the greatest country on earth, where hope springs eternal. Welcome to today's show, Women Beyond the Uniform. We have a special guest today, um, Navy Petty Officer, third class, Sarah Bunger. Maybe third class in rank, but first class in everything else. Welcome to Hope Springs Eternal, Sarah.
Hi, thank you for having me on here, JW. I really appreciate it.
No, we love to have you. So if you could, for our audience, why don't you give a little bit of your background?
I will. All right. Hi, my name is Sarah. I currently live in the state of Arkansas. I moved here about 3 years ago. Before that, I lived on the East Coast for over close to 20 years, actually, not over, but close. That was what brought me to the East Coast is I am a Navy veteran, as you had said. I joined the military at a very young age to avoid homelessness as I was aging out of the foster care system. And it was just an opportunity to have a roof over my head, food in my stomach. And I was at the time really interested in becoming a police officer later on. And so it gave me exposure to security and policing. From there, 9/11 happened, and we were now in a war zone. And so, because of the job that I had chose in the military, about 90% of my security class, I'm going to say about 95% of my class, all got deployed over to the Middle East in a specialized mobilized security unit that was just created. So we were one of the first 100 folks to start that command. And we were protecting assets from enemy fire, enemy overtaking of our different embassy ships. There's a movie that was made after my time over there, Captain Phillips, where Tom Hanks starred in it. It's based off of a true story. And his vessel was overtaken by Somalian pirates. And so that mobilized security unit that I was on, that was our job. Was we had a 12-man team, and we would onboard different vessels. At the time when I was in the Navy, females were not allowed on submarines, yet I was on a submarine for a 12-hour mission. I didn't stay the night on it, but we had to ride it through the Straits of Hormuz, and it was above water, and we had to provide security from the different attacks, not just the Somali pirates going through the Suez Canal, or it was the Suez Canal where we rode the submarine. It's the Straits of Hormuz that we were pushing all of our embassy ships through. And so we were also having a lot of aerial attacks, fast mover attacks from Iran at the time. And this is back in the early 2000s. And at that point in time, during my enrollment, we were not allowed to engage in any fire in some of these choke point areas. So it got a little bit scary. From there, we did different convoy missions to help push supplies to our troops that were serving. So we would load up in Kuwait. We would provide security for all of the vehicles that we needed to bring supplies up with. It was during that mission where I was injured. So I'm a combat wounded veteran. Was injured over there and had sustained so far 4 brain surgeries. I now have a not removable, but an implantable medical device in my brain. And because it's a medical device, it doesn't last lifelong. And so for the rest of my life, I will have future brain surgeries to replace the device, repair the device when it's not working. So it's just an ongoing life battle that I now have. And I got out of the military and I felt really lost. I started working in security with NCIS and the regional security group out of Virginia. It's where my East Coast journey started. And from there, I led a really awesome team. We did a lot of background checks for contractors that were getting onto our military installations. And I really got into the cybersecurity because during this time, MySpace was becoming a big deal. And there was a lot of our service members that were having their accounts mimicked. And then Facebook came around, and a lot of these people from overseas, these organized crime groups, were using their profiles and pictures of our service members to scam our American citizens. So that took me into a whole nother career path which was cybersecurity. And I did that for quite a while. I worked mostly in DC and the Virginia area, but I did have cases all across the world in different multiple jurisdictions and facets and different groups that I had worked with through government agencies and corporate and financial agencies. It wasn't until, I was watching one of your videos, JW, and somebody had mentioned, or I think it was you, the PTSD doesn't hit immediately. And because I had transitioned so quickly from military to civilian government sector, I was still there. I was still serving and working side by side with my military counterparts. And so it wasn't like I had gotten out just yet. And it didn't really hit me until later on. And the brain injury started catching up with me and my memory loss, my ability to sit on a witness stand and have full confidence in a federal case to testify or give, witness testimony. And when that confidence started to fade, my job started to fade, and I lost a lot of that connection. And that's really when I think a lot of everything just hit me all at once, and I didn't know where to go, didn't know where to turn. If you look at me from the outside, I look young and full of energy, but you don't see the days that I can't get out of bed sometimes, that my husband is my caregiver and has to help me and take care of me. You don't see those days, and you don't see the scars from my brain surgery. I happen to be a female and I can hide a lot of it with my hair. And so you just looking at me, you don't, and I tell you I'm a veteran, you wouldn't know I'm a combat wounded veteran. And you wouldn't necessarily know what struggles. And I think something that's not talked a lot about as well in the military is, I think now it is. I think in the recent years it's starting to come out more. But when I was in military, sexual trauma was just something all of us girls, we knew we went through it. It was just we kept our mouth shut and kept your head down and you had to push through it. And those effects as well, as I got out of the military and my daughters were growing up and hitting certain maturity milestones, that PTSD hit me, realizing I have a daughter that just left for college. So she was my age. And when I first started to serve, and it's hitting me now just to think of, man, I can't even imagine her going through any of that and then having to deal with it in silence. And so there's a lot of things that had just happened over the course of time. And it wasn't until we moved here to Virginia that I found a group of female veterans, and I felt a camaraderie, and they connected me to other veteran organizations, and I got to meet other combat wounded veterans, brain injury survivors, vets, and I no longer felt so alone. Even in the VA system, I felt very alone. They would throw me in all these like classes, and then send me tons and tons of medicine, and then send me to different doctors and specialists. But I never felt like my actual issues, my core issues, were ever being fully addressed. And so I was watching and I have so many peers that I was deployed with that are turning to substance abuse, and that's their way of coping with the stress, and it's killing them. We're losing members in our original group that had deployed very quickly. We're losing them just for combat related, burn pit cancer things. And then we're also losing them to suicide and substance abuse deaths, overdoses. We're in that also in that epidemic with pain medicines. We've lost a couple to pain meds. We have one brother right now who I am so proud of him. I think he's almost at 10 years now of sobriety from his injuries and the pain med addiction. And so it's a huge impact. And so I just became really, really passionate. And the more research I did, the more the statistics just started making a lot of sense to me. Women, we are the fastest growing demographic in the veteran community. Not just that, we have different challenges. So for instance, we're also the highest homeless rate out of our veteran demographic. We have the highest amount of homeless veterans as our female vets. And so some of us come with children. We come with the military sexual trauma. Our PTSD therapy it can look a little different than our male counterparts that we have served alongside with. And so those are the gaps that I started getting really passionate and filling the voids and being a voice and just speaking out for the women who still are suffering in silence because they're too scared to come out and talk. And so they've entrusted me to be that voice, and I'm very blessed and honored and humbled to be in this space and to have met you and your organization as well.
Yeah, so that's a really good detailed background. So there's a lot to dive in on. So we're going to start digging around if you don't mind. So first, I'd like to start with your childhood experience as a foster child, as a foster kid. Our organization, we do work with transition aged youth, and we're very tuned into that sort of 16 to 24 demographic group and the challenges that they face, whether they're foster care or probation or any of the, that sort of challenging background. So as a foster kid, you mentioned that you joined the service because you didn't want to be homeless and you wanted a roof over your head and meal and all that sort of thing. So have you ever connected, because I would guess a lot of foster kids join the military as a way to improve their life. The foster environment isn't always the best. You don't always get lucky with the foster parents that you might be assigned to. So kind of go into that, at least that section, like you're 16, 17 years old. How old were you when you first started looking at joining the military? And have you connected, or did you connect, or do you want to connect with other kids like that?
Yes, so that's a good question. So my go-to answer to everybody is I joined at 17, but your question is really spot on. My freshman year in high school, I got into some trouble. I was ditching and not going to class, and that was just conducive of growing up in a group home with 15 other girls. So I had a lot of bad influences around me as well, and I didn't want to be at school. I was already dealing with my own emotional turmoil, I would call it, and just the growing up with that abandonment issue. So that was rough. And then, like you said, there was some foster homes that weren't necessarily healthy. So being re-traumatized all over again, that was rough. And so I was a freshman in high school, and I was messing up terribly. I was ditching class. I ended up graduating with straight F's, zero credit hours. And I could do stuff like that in middle school and still get pushed along. But in high school, it's a whole nother animal. To graduate, you have to have the credit hours. And I knew that I'd be the first in the family. I'm the oldest out of 3 siblings. And so I would be the first in the family. I was trying to set a good example to get my high school diploma. My parents both had me when they were in high school, and I wanted to break that cycle, and they didn't graduate. And so that around the age of 15, then I think it was my sophomore year, it just really resonated with me. But I didn't understand or figure out how I was going to graduate high school without graduating now a year late, because I was already a year behind. And in the town I lived in, we had a really awesome alternative high school. It wasn't even considered alternative, but now today it is. And it was a work at your own pace. So I just started busting my butt. And it was at that point when I started getting caught up in my high school that I knew I could graduate a little early. I turned 18 in April, and we were graduating in the month of May. And I needed to figure something out before April. And so that was when it kind of sparked in me that I could do something before I turned 18. Couldn't figure it out exactly what, and the military just happened. I remember being at a graduation for our senior, not my senior class, but the current senior class. And I remember seeing the recruiters there, and it resonated something in me. And so that was just when that military dream really started. But I knew I needed to get my grades up. I did not want to join the Marine Corps, the Army, and no offense to either branch, I I love the water. I was a swimmer in high school, competitive swimmer. And so for me, the Navy and the Coast Guard and Air Force, those were the three branches at the time I was really interested in. And so, yeah, about the age of 15 is when I first started. I started watching girls that were a little bit older than me that were aging out. And the one common theme I was watching with all of them were they'd get out and get straight into drugs and then be homeless. I remember one time seeing a girl working on the street, and I'm almost guaranteeing you she was being trafficked. And it just, it kind of shook me to my core that that was not what I wanted for myself. They did have a couple of like homeward bound type programs that were set up for us. To me, it was more of a band-aid on the problem. They would just have us go to classes, but they weren't really giving us the tools to become independently successful when we aged out. So military was it. I needed structure as well. As something growing up in foster care, even prior to foster care, I didn't have structure in my life. And so I thrived on that structure, and I knew the military would give that to me. So yeah, thought about age 15. I then just went full force into my studies. I knew then I wanted to work with law enforcement. I happened to get in trouble when I was in my youth at a group home, and got the police called on me. And there was an officer that put me in what we call in the police world, we call it the fishbowl, the interrogation room. And he put me in that fishbowl, and just, I think he knew there was some potential. And he just said, you're going to either in two different directions here, but you get to make that choice. And that resonated with me. And so then I knew I wanted to work with policing because I wanted to be inspirational to the next kid that was in my own shoes. My original goal was to join the military, get out, go back home and be a cop in my hometown in Colorado. And that never happened. I ended up working in a different space because life, that's just how that works. But trying to think if I answered your question fully.
Life is like that. Okay, so you join the military, you go off the basic training, you get through basic training. So what would you say as your, let's say your first year or so in the military, what would you say are things that are unique to the female military experience?
My
Good
experience,
or bad?
yeah. So there's a couple. So my experience is a little bit different just due to the time that I had went to boot camp versus your current females who have joined with even the last 10 years. I do think they've readjusted, and I think it's taken a good force of females that are active duty and veterans to make some of the policy changes to make life a little easier. But when I joined, one thing I always kind of kid around about, and if you've been in the Navy, I'm not sure, I know every branch is a little different, but the guys get in there and they shave their heads, right? And the girls, they go in there and they chop our hair really short. Well, I have naturally curly hair, so my hair was like a frizz ball. I absolutely despise my boot camp photo because we weren't allowed to touch our hair. It just really, and I understand the why behind it, because we were supposed to get up out of our bunk and be ready as soon as they woke us up. And like, there's no way it's going to take time for girls to all even put their hair up in a bun. So I understand the why behind it, but it felt really demoralizing. And at that point, it was also very humbling. And that's when I realized that I am in the military because I'm serving my country. This is no longer about me. But I noticed like they weren't providing us with just even the proper feminine products. And we had constant bunk inspections, and it was just really embarrassing to have our male drill and RDCs is what we call them in the Navy, but our drill instructors come in and they would do these bunk inspections with everybody watching, and we were issued white underwear. And as a female, that is very embarrassing. And if you're not getting the right feminine products, it's just almost like that is one of our basic human rights, is to have just our basic needs taken care of. And so for me, like, I know things have changed, but I still think there are challenges that females are still facing to this day. Pregnancy is another huge one. Not having adequate birth control. Being over in the Middle East, you would think we got to get make sure that there's something for to consistently make sure we're receiving those products. And then this full circle back to MST, and we're over fighting in a war in Iraq and we can't get birth control. And then you have women who are getting hurt, and and when I say MST, for those who are joining us who don't know that acronym, that's military sexual trauma. And it creates a whirlwind of effect, not just on the service individual, but the service as well. Because I mean, just think of the money that as a government you're going to have to now put in to replace that female military member with another counterpart so that the job and the mission can still get completed. And so it's extra resources that are also getting wasted and not used in the right space where it needs to be. And I also think that's what causes a lot of people to push back on females joining the services, because we do have unique challenges. But it doesn't mean that because I have a couple different unique challenges that my male counterparts may not necessarily deal with in the same level. It doesn't mean that I can't do the same exact job. I can shoot the same exact weapon. I can clear a building if I need to clear a building really, really fast. I can carry my weight, and that doesn't mean that I'm all of a sudden now not qualified to serve because I'm a female and I have a monthly cycle.
Well, it's interesting because I always think back early on in the program, we had a lot of IDF folks that came into the program. So for those that don't know what IDF is, that's the Israeli Defense Forces. And so I always used to talk to them because by far the Israeli military is the most progressive. And the reason that I think the number one reason why that's true is because it's a small country and it's required that everybody serves, whether you're male or female. And they have one basic rule. If you can kill the bad guys, you can serve. And that's all that matters. Nothing else matters. Like, we have to have more guys that can kill, because the army that kills the other guy, as Patton would normally say, the rule of war is to kill the other guy, not the other guy kill you. So I think the IDF has it right. Like, they don't care gay, straight, male, female, whatever. Like, if you can kill the other guy, the bad guy, you there's a place for you somewhere. I think that's kind of how you gotta work it. I mean, the objective is to win. There's no other objective. As I famously said at my speech at the Kennedy Center, we're in the winning business. Like, there's no second place in the winning business. There's only first place.
Yes.
You brought up some other things. So we hear a lot about, especially lately, MST, military sexual trauma. We hear a lot about that in the news. When you read the reports that the Pentagon puts out, one of the things that's always been striking to me is the significant percentage. I think it's between 74 and 76% of those military sexual trauma cases do not file an official report. So I want to, from your perspective, from a female service member's perspective, you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was in the first command that we had started with the first 100, less than 10% were female. So the ratio was about 1 to 10 male to female. We didn't have not a lot of females there. So it was a very almost weird, toxic type of environment. The guys were, I don't know how to explain it. Sorry, JW, I'm having one of those moments.
That's all right. We can move on.
We're talking about MST. Sorry, no, I drew a blank for a second. What we were talking about, yeah. And keeping it quiet. Why am I not? What was your question? I'm sorry. I don't know why that just.
I was just trying to get you to opine a little bit on why the percentage. I think it's 76%, maybe it's 74% in the latest report, but it's somewhere very high up there. Do not report their trauma. And if you do not report the trauma, where do you go to get help? Where do you go to get support? I mean, I kind of know the answer because they came to my program, but
no, sorry. Now I know what I was going to say, though, because we had such a low number of females. You never want to be that female that said something that caused make the rest of you look bad, right? Because there was such a low number of us. That's where I was getting to. So when I was in, it was almost a toxic environment that you almost kept your mouth shut, your head down, because you didn't want to be outcasted. That's the other part is and this is just my personal experience too. Yeah, is it's the leadership, right? So you have this leadership in the military and this chain of command, and when the military sexual trauma happens from somebody in seniority of you or in charge of you, then where do you necessarily go to? You have in the military, you have your different groups. So you've got your enlisted and your higher enlisted, like in the Navy would be our chief group, right? Your E7 and through E9. And they take care of each other. And so if it's somebody in that level that's hurting like an E1 or E2, who does that E1 or E2 go to? Because that they have that higher ranking brotherhood and they're going to protect that individual. And then same with the officer, you've got your officer, and then your enlisted, gaps. And so if it's an officer who is hurting somebody significantly lower ranking, you almost feel out of pocket. And as a female, that is why you just, we didn't even talk about it amongst each other when I was active duty. It wasn't until I got out and started doing a lot of this advocacy work that I started talking with other female veterans. And then, JW, it blows my mind because I have yet to meet one female service member who has said nothing happened, no sexual harassment. They never felt like they had to do something in order to continue in their career progression and rank up, and or their evals were going to be impacted. In my situation, it was somebody significantly higher ranking than me, and he had decided to call me out in quarters. We had every day in muster, we had a muster together in quarters, and he called me out right before our mission took Kuwait. And it was just like a stab at me in front of everybody, more of like, hey, make sure, when we get over there, because we're going to be joining another mobile unit, that, you don't sit there and flirt with all the guys. And it was just inappropriate in that context to put me in that position. So then I really recluse. Like, I don't really want to tell anybody what's going on because I could feel that like threatening environment. And so, yeah, when you get out, who do you go to? We haven't. It was a very silent thing all of us have dealt with until recently. And now we have programs that are starting to gear towards MST and the research behind it. But the research, in my opinion, is still skewed because, like you said, if you have nobody reporting, and same as I think we have a higher percentage of female veterans than we know, because if they're not getting services, and this is just counting the females that are getting services through the VA. I mean, I know several females who don't. So when you think about the statistics, I always say that's just giving you the top of the iceberg. It's not giving you the full picture of what the numbers truly look like.
Well, no, and I always say when you get data, you get the data you can see, but the data you don't see also is out there. That's why I always gripe about the suicide reports, because they misclassify or underclassify both on the attempt side and on the actual numbers. The numbers aren't necessarily real. So let's touch on here, since you were talking about gaps. What would you say are the biggest gaps that exist in the current system, specifically for female veterans? I know that the VA is doing a lot, trying to do a lot to better cater to female veterans. You had mentioned some percentages earlier on. The latest numbers I saw were females make up about 14 to 15% of the military population during the Iraq-Afghanistan era. So what would you say, if you want to speak to that? What are your, like, if you could be the secretary of the VA for a day, what would you do?
I think it all goes with on your offboarding, in between your deployments, your missions, and then again when you're leaving the military. It's all of the different transitional periods for every service member. There needs to be a program in place, not just, and this goes for all military service members and veterans, but there should be enough transitional services that we're not just pushing our service members into the next task, because that is our job. We're going to do it no matter what arises, or mental strength, or not mental strength, what mental issues we may also be going through. It's just ingrained in us. It's who we are in the military. And so I think we need more transitional services. And with that, I think we need to have more education in the military regarding MST, and during those educational opportunities, we, provide resources so that if something were to happen, that person would know where to turn or where to go to. And it has to be constantly talked about. You can't just do it, one time in a year, briefing with your unit. It has to be very consistent. Every time you come back from a deployment, every time you come back from a training exercise, and it doesn't have to be something that's overwhelming. Very quick check-in. I think the biggest area that needs to be helped is when they are transitioning out of the military into the civilian sector. Then that's where your resources really need to be geared, because, like you said, that trauma is not going to even rear its head right away when they get out, but it will. And it can be a year or two down the road, and you're going to remember what that person told you when you got out. Because when that happened to me, that's all I kept doing was scrounging back at my memory going, okay, I remember meeting with a VSO officer. I remember having this quick, 2-hour class they made me take just so I can get out of the military. And I'm like trying to remember everything they told me. And I'm like, they just didn't tell me. I didn't even know I could receive healthcare at the VA when I got out. I got my disability rating, and I thought that was it. That I don't know why I thought that in order for me to get help from the VA, I had to be a double amputee or something that crazy traumatic. So it takes a lot of educating and just a repetitive message, and having those programs in places.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk a little bit more on obviously I'm big on the integrated holistic health and well-being. So has the VA ever offered you any holistic, like hyperbaric therapy or any of those kind of things, or have you done any of those things on your own?
So it's something I've done a lot of research in. The VA has not necessarily given me, especially like the chamber, nothing. That to me is luxury medical care, in my opinion. It's something that is very hard for us service members to get through the VA. I have received classes, so they love classes. I've done a lot of whole health classes. They're really good at doing these classes to teach you, but they just don't give you the resources after the fact. So yeah, they taught us about whole health, even eating, and the gut brain connection with food and how that works. But they didn't sit down and say, but here's how you're going to sit at home and plan this. I have a brain injury. My memory is really bad. I need those planning tools to know how I can execute it at home. So they don't give you that type of resources, more just the knowledge. And that's one thing I've learned. Not just that, I'm not here just to talk bad about the VA, but it's the one thing I've learned is you've got to advocate for yourself and take what they give you and basically do the research on your own and push forward. And for somebody that's younger, that's easier. But with somebody with complex medical issues, and especially our aging veterans, it gets so confusing, you almost just give up. And then you just end up becoming that next statistic at the VA that you're just getting pushed through the system until you pass away.
Yeah, I mean, it's the VA is the VA, as I like to say, and there's ways you try to navigate through that system, and obviously, they're a evidence-based, is they love to throw the evidence-based, and I always try to say, well, if you have something new, how do you know what the evidence is if you don't go out and actually do it and build some evidence? Like, you have to be willing to try new things, because let's face it, the VA does a lot of really good things, and then there's things that they're, let's say, charitably less good at. And I think the biggest problem is, I always say, is that they don't realize they're in the customer service business. They're not in the healthcare business, they're in the customer service business. And it would be helpful if they, especially some of the bureaucrats that work there, if they realize that, it would probably make things a lot better. So you're out of the service, you're going into the private sector. You said you were doing these different security jobs. When along your journey out of the military, do you feel like you got to that point? You mentioned the word like you lost connection. So talk a little bit about like how long were you out where you feel like, was it 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? How many, where were you in the life continuum when you really felt like you've lost that connection?
I would say it was a little over a year after I had to quit working in that capacity and it, with my service members and law enforcement counterparts. So it was a good year. I don't know why in my mind I thought like, okay, I'm gonna take a break and um, I- this is just another, obstacle. I can get through it. During that time, I was also going through some of the hardest parts of my brain surgeries, complication wise with meningitis and a brain leak and just being pretty much bedridden. I couldn't be upright for more than 10 minutes at a time. So that depression really kicked in. Then I felt really lonely. It was that lonely period. Um, I started just reaching out to other people that had had similar complications on the brain part, and that kind of helped that void not feel so alone. But I nobody understood this transition that I was going through. I had been a civilian for a while, and it's one thing that stuck in my memory. I remember getting out and I had seen some of my fellow counterparts. We all kind of got out around the same time, and I'd seen their PTSD impact them fairly quickly. And so I just always said, "Oh, I'm just one of the very lucky ones that it didn't really impact at all, except for like the occasional like loud backfire on a car, just normal things that would startle somebody." And that's what I thought PTSD would. That I didn't understand it. I didn't know the overthinking, the getting overwhelmed very quickly. That was part of any of that. And so I was just said, "Oh, I'm one of the lucky ones. I came back from war and I'm good." And it when I went through that transitional period and I felt so alone that year, that just it hit me. And then I did an avoidance game. So then I avoided everybody in the military. I avoided any of those conversations because it only just continued to caused the PTSD and this is untreated PTSD at the time. And and I just didn't know where to go.
So you didn't know where to go. So let's talk a little bit about the future, because there's there's a large number of females that transition out of the military every year. And how can we do better for them?
I think making sure that we listen. I love that there's panels of females that are part of the SOAR organization too, and just different organizations, even with the nonprofit here in Arkansas, Military Service Sisters. I think really just doing more forums, hearing and listening and seeing what it is that's going to help, as well as putting those into play. So it's great all day long. You and I can have really good conversations about what should happen and what that should look like, and we can go on even about like the evidence based and how uh, different things than just throwing a whole bunch of prescription meds are going to have a better impact. And it's going to sound really awesome and we'll get a lot of engagement, but it's not going to go anywhere unless we really put forth the action and make it happen. And so I think that's where we can all do better. We all need to come together and really push the envelope more than us just conversating about it.
Yeah, so they estimate that about 30,000 women transition out of the military every year. And it seems to me like if it exists, I don't know about it. But it seems to me like there isn't a female specific program out there that can be utilized from a holistic health perspective to help them in the transition. Like I'm sure there's job placement or workforce development stuff. But in terms of like just not just females, but military service members at whole, like there's not a holistic assessment that's done that says here's what your brain health, gut health, heart health, behavioral health look like as you're transitioning out of the military. Here's an assessment so that you can gain self-awareness for what you need to focus on when you get out. And the example I use is when I played college football, one of the things that they did at the time was that you had an interview with the team doctor, and you went to the team doctor after the last season, and he got all your medical records out and threw all your x-rays and everything else up on the chart and took a look at them and said, here's where you're at, here's what you need to work on, and here's what your future could be. And I remember my team doctor looking at all my stuff, looking at all my injury history and everything, and said, if you want to be mobile when you're 40, you need to lose weight and you need to improve, because I had ankle injuries, I had knee injuries. And he said, the best thing you could do is you need to lose weight. He goes, how many times do we see guys coming back the following year? So they've been out of the game a year, and they, especially for offense and defensive linemen, they would go from like 260 to 300, like, because they would keep eating the same that they were eating when they played, but their physical activity was next to nil because they all were suffering from these, post injuries where, like for me, I don't run. And I not that I ever really enjoyed running, but when you have ankle and knee injuries, running is not a favorable exercise. And so it's like the docs is like, hey, if you want to be mobile, like I'm like, hell yeah, I want to be mobile when I'm 40. I want to live to whenever. So it's like that type of information. I've never heard that it's done in the military. Maybe it is, and I'm just not aware. But it seems to me that would be useful information. The more self-awareness people have, in my opinion, human nature is you're gonna a large percentage of people are gonna, just like I did, I acted on it. I mean, I immediately, started. I started doing triathlons with my brother, and I lost a lot of weight, and then I got into the competitive cycling thing because, like I said, I didn't enjoy running, and triathlons involve running, and I was just like, nah, I don't want to do that. It was too painful. And I was actually really good at the cycling thing, and I ended up losing like 80 pounds in less than 6 months. And as they say, the rest is history. But like, wouldn't it be great if there was a place or a program that could offer that?
Absolutely. And especially food, we're talking about substance disorders too, but food is a huge comfort. And so that's another, you may not use drugs or alcohol when you get out and you're, in the military or dealing with any type of brain trauma, but food is always a comfort, and it triggers those endorphins in your brain, and that also leads. And that was one thing for me. I had gained weight significantly when I was dealing with my combat injuries, and it was because I was sedentary, and then all the steroids they had to put me on for many months, and there was nothing other than, we're going to kick you out of the military because you're not meeting your weight requirement. There wasn't really good programs other than, we're going to just work you out a little bit more. Now you got to wake up every day at 5 a.m. and work out instead of just the mandatory command workout days. So I agree with you. I think there's so much opportunity. My biggest thing is we're all really, really good at putting fires out and coming up with really good ideas of how to put those fires out as quick as possible, right? Without the bottlenecks. But we really need to look at how are we preventing those fires from starting to begin with. And I think that's, if you look at it in that perspective, then you start thinking, okay, well, we start even doing this training while they're in the military and making them aware and knowing how they can still, I struggled, like what you were saying with running, that was really hard on me. So because I was a swimmer growing up, I swam my physical test in the Navy because I could. And so I'd swim it because I hated running. I had an intolerance almost. I'd get really lightheaded, and running just wasn't my thing. And so I think having conversations early on and helping that service member with overcome certain things, even learning meditation, man, I could have really gotten through some hard times in my combat time just knowing how to self meditate on the moment in the spot, and I didn't have that skill then. So yeah, I really think we need to not it's great to have stuff in place to help the fire after the fact, but really preventing it from ahead of time, and even eating healthy. The health elements that I had myself struggled with because I wasn't eating healthy, and those MREs that we were eating, it caused a lot of issues with my gut health, just even in the military, that led to other issues. So yeah, I'm with you. I think having the knowledge is key, and having it ahead of time helps.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get with my engineer here. We did a segment on PTSD, and it was a commentary reaction video segment that we did, and there was a video that the VA put out, and it was a cartoon, and so obviously they spent a lot of money on it, and it was about PTSD treatment, and the first thing that the video showed was you go to the VA and you get diagnosed with PTSD, and then they put you on SSRIs. And that was the first thing. Like, there's no mention of behavioral health or what your risk is, or holistic health options or anything like that. It was like straight to meds. And yeah, Joshua found it, because I know we kept it because it was just it was so hilarious, and it's like it epitomized the problem, and that's why I advocate, as you know, that we need a center that is all based on integrated holistic health and human performance, and there's no prescription drugs involved whatsoever. So
Exactly.
I'm gonna if we can find that video, and I would like to play it and get your reaction to it. So Josh, I don't know, I'm sure you can hear me, but if you can tee up that video, I think it would be hilarious to show some people and see what they think. Oh, I think I found it right out of the gate. How about this? Uh, Hang on one second here. Josh, I'm putting it in the YouTube chat, but I think that's the video. Can we somehow play that, or how I don't know how complicated it is to do that. Do I need to share my screen? Okay. All right, let's see what kind of skills I have these day and age. Let's see here. Just give me a second. Anyway, we can keep talking. So what would you say would be, you're going to start your own program. What would you do? What would you want to do?
Or start for females or just for
Yeah. Well,
all
anything.
veterans?
Yeah. You can do it however you want. You're
Yeah,
in
so
charge.
if I were to start my own program, man, that is a very good question. um ooh uh
Oh. Hang on. Sorry. We're having technical issues with the commander. The commander is going to crash the plane. Anyway, maybe it's too complicated to do. I put it in the chat, but let's see if I can figure out how to make it work here. Different way here. I got to transfer it to the other computer. All right, so let me figure out how to get this going here. All right, here we go. I think I figured it out there. As I like to say, you got to be smarter than what you're dealing with. All right. All right, let's see if this works.
PTSD treatments available that have been proven to work and that can help you feel lighter. They can help you learn new ways to manage your feelings, cope with stressful situations, and improve your relationships. Your memory of the event can become less intense, so it won't take up as much space in your mind, and you can focus on the things that matter to you. It's important to know there are many effective ways to treat PTSD. Some people prefer to participate in psychotherapy or talk therapy. Others prefer to take medication, and some people decide to do both. Let's explore some of these treatment options. Talk therapy can be tailored to address how PTSD symptoms show up in your life. The most effective treatment for PTSD is trauma-focused talk therapy. Trauma-focused means that when you talk to your therapist, you focus on your memories of traumatic events and what they mean to you. One-on-one talk therapies include cognitive processing therapy, or CPT, which teaches you new ways to handle upsetting thoughts after trauma. Learning more helpful ways of thinking can have a lasting positive effect on how you feel. Prolonged exposure, or PE, which helps you approach memories and situations you may have been avoiding since the traumatic event. It also allows you to practice more helpful ways of viewing yourself and the world. With time, it gets easier to handle the memories and situations. Eventually, you won't feel like you need to avoid them. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, or EMDR, which involves paying attention to a back and forth movement as a way to help you process memories of trauma. Your therapist will also help you identify more helpful thoughts related to the event. These talk therapies usually take 3 to 4 months of weekly visits, and improvements can last long after you've completed therapy. Medication is another effective treatment option. Specifically, a few of the medications known as selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, and serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors, SNRIs, treat PTSD symptoms by adjusting chemicals in the brain that have been affected by trauma. This can help reduce the intensity of PTSD. There are 3 recommended medications: sertraline, known as Zoloft, paroxetine, known as Paxil, and venlafaxine, known as Effexor. These medications must be prescribed by a healthcare provider. They can be effective for as long as you continue to take them as prescribed. It's common to deal with both PTSD and other challenges at the same time. These can include health conditions like chronic pain, depression, substance use problems, traumatic brain injury, or insomnia. Don't let these challenges stop you from pursuing treatment for your PTSD symptoms. Often, effective PTSD treatments can help with these conditions too. Remember, it's never too late to get treatment. Talk to your mental health provider about which treatment options are right for you and your life. Talk therapy, medication, or maybe both. These treatments work, and you can do them in person or by video. Feeling lighter is possible. You deserve this chance to feel better. Use the QR code on the screen or
So I'd be curious just to look at the numbers of how many people end up quitting SSRIs just because of relapse of symptoms, or things start to feel good and they get off and then everything comes back. Because I think that is kind of where I'm saying we're really good at putting this fire out, but where are we getting proactive with it? And taking a reminder or remembering to take a pill every day. And when you do start feeling good, it's really easy just to stop. Whereas we're teaching the more whole balance of whole, the holistic part. I think that is more targeting lifelong habits, the health, changing our habits in a different light.
Well, I mean, the thing that's striking to me is that they say there's only two options. It's myopic thinking, and like holistic health or integrated therapy or anything else isn't even an option. It's like you do group therapy or you do medication or you do both. And to me, that's not the answer. And I think that video was made only a year ago, and they spent a lot of money on it. And never in the video does it say, hey, SSRIs have side effects, which number one thing is suicide ideation, increasing suicide ideation, erectile dysfunction, or sexual dysfunction, or any of these other things that are so negative. Like the myopic thinking of it is the part that when we first showed that video, I was like, I almost fell off my chair. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. It's like, this video is exactly why we have 6,500 suicides or more a year. It's because this is how they think, and this is how they push the veterans into a system that is set up not to help them.
Correct.
And
the one-step approach.
Right. It's one size fits all. And that, I'm going to hopefully get a chance to speak about this on Monday at this mental health event that I'm speaking at. But the one size fits all medical approach has failed us. And we need to think differently. And like I always say, we need to start listening to the people we're trying to help, because they're screaming for help. And, we had a caregiver in the chat who was talking about how they have to advocate for their own care, and she's her husband's caregiver, and so now she needs care. We need caregivers for the caregivers, and that's crazy. Like, we have a lot of caregivers in our program. One of the things I started from day one was involving the families, because they're involved in it too. Like, whether you like it or not, if you're married to a vet or you have a parent of a vet or whatever, you're oftentimes the best advocate. And one of the things that we also realize is that the veteran or the patient and the advocate or the caregiver or the family member aren't always on the same page with what's going on. If you ask any veteran how they're doing today, they're going to say, okay, I'm doing okay. And you say, is anything bothering you today? No, it's all good. I'm fine. But they're not. And everybody knows they're not. And so that's one of the reasons why I created my app, was because it gives everybody a score for their life. And then the caregiver or the family member and the veteran can look at the score and they're all seeing the same information. And so there's not a disconnect between, you know, what actually is going on. And I mean, one of the very first tests we did was veterans and caregivers, and the caregivers were more excited than the veterans because they finally kind of understood what was going on with their loved one.
Right. And then just already taking on that job of caregiving already is mentally and physically draining, that you just feel like you're in this forever cycle. So to actually have something like that you can see it, just it does open so many more doors for the advocating. Because you're right. I mean, my husband is my caregiver, and there's times we've been in appointments and I'm just ready to get over with the appointment because I'm overstimulated. My brain's overstimulated. I don't like to talk about my symptoms, and I'm just ready to get done. And he has to be there to say, no, she did have a seizure last week and she did have this going on. And I'm like, but he's my advocate. And if I didn't have him, I don't know where I'd be. I mean, especially getting some of the treatment and care that I needed when I was dealing with the brain leak and meningitis.
No, and it's, you know, the caregivers oftentimes aren't necessarily from a military background, and so they don't necessarily understand the bureaucracy of what they have to deal with. I had this conversation with someone earlier today, and it was just like we happen to have one of the best in our group. We have a VA advocate that I found. We actually sat next to each other at a suicide prevention conference at lunch, and we started talking. And when she started telling me what she did and what she's doing, I said, "You're going to be my new best friend," because I don't understand how the VA works. I mean, I've been dealing with it for years. I don't really understand the mentality of the approach. It would be, if I was in charge, it would be completely different. But she understood because she worked for the VA for so long and really understood, hey, if you're trying to appeal a disability rating or appeal a process or get a disability rating, or what benefits are you entitled to, like having someone from the inside be able to navigate that for somebody is worth its weight in gold. And I say that to her every single day because I send her lots of vets. It is an important part of what we need to do is like, if the VA just established some type of customer service program, that would go a long way. And they should hire her first.
Exactly. And the checks and balances and the Q&A too, the quality assurance as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, that part of the VA I actually like. I think the medical people, like if you have cancer or you have some type of medical condition, the medical professionals at the VA are among the best anywhere. I would stack them up against any other healthcare provider in the country. I think we get incredible doctors. There's a lot of hardworking, caring people, but just not enough. And the quality varies so tremendously from one VA to the other that that's another part that really I think frustrates a lot of people.
I think I see it too on the other side with the medical personnel. One thing I came across myself is they're not necessarily given the proper tools either. And so even my dentist that I see at the VA, he's not so frustrated because he just is out of pocket, doesn't have what he needs, that he's using his own money to make sure we're not suffering on that end as a veteran. And so you're right. Yes, the personnel they're there for a reason, and most of them have a heart for what they're doing, but they're also restricted. And I don't think everybody sees that side of it either, especially as a vet when you're getting frustrated and you're getting that phone call. I've had it several times that we had to cancel because we don't have this equipment, or this equipment's not working today. Well, that's awesome, but for me to get a new appointment now, it's 6 months down the line unless I'm begging for a community care referral, and even that can take a couple more months. So it's just it's an ongoing battle for providers and for the patients both.
No, it's challenging because there's an ever like you said, there's 30,000 new folks eligible for the VA system. That's just female veterans, and then there's probably whatever 100,000 or more male, 5 times that number at least coming out from the male side. So the VA system, and there's fewer and fewer providers as they burn out or age out or what have you. So it's it's the system we have. And whenever I hear people on TV advocate for Medicare for all, we need Medicare for all. It's like, we have that right now. It's called the VA. And if you ask veterans, we've had to give more options like community care, which I think, again, also varies from provider to provider. Some of them are really good, some of them less good. But if that system doesn't necessarily work, why would we want to put everybody on that system? It would just be even worse. So I find that also, just from an individual American perspective, a little an interesting conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you on that for sure.
Yeah, I think the VA does the best job that they can. I think overall they really care. They want to do well for the veterans. I think it's very well intentioned. The problem is the system is set up so that bad people drag it down instead of good people elevating it. And I think it's kind of the opposite of the active duty component, right? The active duty component, there's a structure. It's a very good structure, and good people, achieve. And unfortunately, it's a little more decentralized, because like a vision director has control, or a hospital director has control, and doesn't necessarily have to answer to whatever the VA secretary dictates. And so that's why they have that famous saying, if you've seen one VA, you've seen one VA.
It's so true, and I've lived in many states, and you're absolutely correct. I think every veteran can tell you that too. I see it in it's a very common thing among us when we talk about our care. And one of the biggest questions people will ask is, "Hey, I'm thinking about moving to this state. What is the VA care there like?" And or I'm traveling, and I'm especially for me with my brain device, if it changes settings, I am it's an emergency situation, and I always have to know if I'm traveling somewhere, if it's going to be anywhere close, or what's the distance to any of the university hospitals where I typically end up having to go to. But it's just that constant question and theme. And we're always asking, like, okay, well, sometimes it's not even just state, it's even clinic. So I see an outside clinic or a satellite clinic, right, just for my primary care. But then the rest of my specialty care is done at the big VA down in the city. And both care at each facility is completely different.
No, I mean, that's just because it's people, right? Because people vary from person to person, and that's part of, I would say it's mostly a good thing. Occasionally it's not so good, but it's called life. Life is not easy. If life was easy, it'd be a different ball game. So that's why we always kind of talk, like, I think we need to talk, well, that's another subject for another podcast. We're running out of time, but I really appreciate you coming on, Sarah. I think that your story resonates with a lot of people, and I think people will gain strength from listening to your words. We're excited about the things that we're trying to do for the female veteran population. I think it's important. I mean, I've always had a tremendously high participation rate among female veterans. I think I mentioned that females make up about 14 or 15% of the military service, and we get between 30 and 35% of our participants are female. And I think one of the reasons is, well, one, I don't put up with a lot of crap, and secondly, it's a place where people can come and feel connected, feel safe, and get support in a way that they, like you mentioned, the stigma of reporting. Because once you report, it's like putting a scarlet letter on your forehead, and now everybody knows, you're out there, and people want to get help, but they don't want the scarlet letter. And That's kind of how I kind of describe it. And we don't do scarlet letters in our organization. So appreciate your time. If there's anything you want to say to anybody on the way out, I want to thank everybody listening and all the comments. We see you, we see your comments, and we appreciate those comments. And we'll be on to next week. Send us off, Sarah.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Thanks. If you're a female veteran and you've been watching, thank you for your support and continue to comment on this. I look forward to engaging and getting to know each of you guys a little bit further. And if you have any suggestions on what we were talking about, please shoot them in the comments as well. I am very open to anything that you think I can do to help support and give a voice for all of us.
Awesome. And just remember, hope springs eternal.